Ladies and gentlemen, Lenicia Roden, make her welcome, please.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So welcome to this masterclass on locating and landing grants for youth-led enterprises and projects. Now, this is something that I'm sure many persons who are running their own organizations or want to run their own organizations want to learn about. Because one of the things is you can't run an enterprise or even a non-profit organization without funding. Funding is very important. And so it is very important for us to learn how to do it. And there's no better way than to talk with the experts in the room. So as was mentioned earlier, I'm Lenicia Roden, and I have been leading an organization for the last 14 years, Young Women and Men of Purpose, which is a non-profit organization, and also our social enterprise, Link Your Purpose. And we have managed to get a few grants, but it took a lot of work. We heard a lot of no's. We had some near misses where we were even flown to different countries to pitch and didn't get the grants. But in spite of all of that, we still managed to get quite a few of those grants so that we could build our organization, implement impactful projects, and that is one of the reasons why we are here today. Now, with me on this panel, we have 3 experts who manage funds, grant funding. How many persons in the room want to get funding for their organizations? How many persons in the room run organizations? Raise your hand, don't be afraid. And how many of you want to access funding for your organization? All right, a few persons. So I'm going to introduce you to our esteemed panelists. We have first Miss Faradane Forbes Edwards from GEF Small Grants Program. And she's going to tell you a little bit more about the GEF Small Grants Program in a moment. We also have Miss Tanisha Patterson, who is a program manager for the Jamaica Youth Business Trust. And finally on our panel, we have Mr. Mark Scott from Academic Journeys, and he's also going to tell you about how you can access funding with the help of his organization. So Faradane, can you go ahead and just tell the audience, tell our youth about your organization and about the grant funding opportunities that you offer?
Thanks, Lanisha. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I know it's a little bit past lunchtime, so I know we're a little bit hungry, but not to worry. I'm sure by the end of this session, you'll be filled somewhat, right? So I'm from the GEF Small Grants Program, and we provide grant funding, minimum $50,000 to community-based organizations and NGOs to address environmental issues within their communities, while also enhancing the quality of life or the livelihoods of the residents in those communities.
All right, thank you very much. And we move on to Tanisha.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Excellent. Good afternoon. Happy that we're all here, right? All right. Just to share a bit as it relates to Jamaica Youth Business Trust, it is a non-government NGO that supports young people on their dream of becoming their own bosses who seeks to start their own businesses. We support young people between the ages 18 to 35, and we do so by offering various support services, which we will get into afterwards. But just to say, being that we're talking about grant funding, yes, we do support young people with grant funding, and let me say these are just micro grant funding to support you on your entrepreneurial journey.
All right, thank you very much, Tanisha. And we move over to Mark.
Well, I operate AJ Education and Technology Services Limited, which what we do is we create 1%ers that are world beaters. And if you go on the website at the back of you will see what I mean. We're focused particularly on closing knowledge gaps in individuals and firms. So on the individual side, in students, they become world beaters, like I mentioned. And in terms of firms, they become more efficient.
All right, thank you very much. So our first question goes to Faradane. So does the GEF Small Grants Program give grants to youth and youth-led projects? And can you tell us, over the years that you have been doing this, what is the value of the grants that you have actually given to youth organization? And what type of projects do you normally fund?
All right, thanks again for that question. We have been operating in Jamaica since 2005. So it's very difficult to pull out a figure to say this is the amount that we have given to youth. I will say, however, that since 2005, we have given community groups, NGOs, a total of over 60 million US dollars, many of which are youth-led organizations or organizations that focus on youth development, right? From time to time, we also have innovative programs that are directly targeted to youth, and throughout our general call for a proposal or grant funding opportunities, youth are one of our primary target audience.
Okay, thank you, Faradane. And I go over to Tanisha. What role does the Jamaica Youth Business Trust play in preparing young people who want to go into business?
As it relates to Jamaica Youth Business Trust and their role, we support young people in a number of ways. One, we provide business training because that is important in terms of building their capacity for them to learn and to grasp the knowledge and skills that they need to really start and to manage a business. We also provide signposting support because we know that it can be very difficult in navigating the environment as it relates to what are the various government entities and support agencies that you need to be working with as it relates to your entrepreneurial journey. We also provide support in the form of business planning and advisory support. Again, helping the young people to leverage that kind of knowledge which they would need to go on their entrepreneurial journey. And likewise, finally, seed capital, as I mentioned before. This could either be in the form of a grant, which goes up to about 100,000, 150,000, and loans, and it all depends on the international donor partner that we are working with at that point in time, because we do know that that kind of resource is very, very limited. So those are some of the ways in which JYBT supports young people.
Okay, did I hear you say loan?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I wasn't aware of that. I'm not sure how many persons knew that the JYBT actually provides loan for businesses. So
Yes.
that's good to
However,
know.
just to clarify, that
Yes.
was the past though.
Oh.
But currently we do offer micro grants, and it's the reason I just want to ensure that it's placed out there.
Okay.
All right.
And of course, a grant is better than a loan because you know that grant is, in quotation, what we call
Free money.
free money, right? While a loan you have to repay.
Repay.
So
All right.
we're here for the grants.
That is what.
Thank
Not a
you.
problem.
All right, so Mark, you have helped many young people to access grant funding and to get ahead with their organizations. What would you say are some key factors that young people must bear in mind when they are seeking to access grant funding?
All right, well, I want to talk to you from the lens of you being super successful and you don't need grants. All right, so put that lens on first. One of the things you're going to recognize is that to run a business successfully, you need knowledge. When you're super successful in business, you need knowledge. When I had the opportunity of being project manager with World Cup and I was working alongside in different rooms with Mr. Michael Leachin, one of the things he always emphasizes is substituting deep pocketedness with creativity. Now, take back off that lens of being successful and be a regular, successful, normal, everyday people now, because you're successful already, all right? And recognize that the first thing you need to and must equip yourself with is knowledge. If every table in here placed a pitch deck on the table here in front of these two women to assess it, it is the person who has the most clarity about their goal communicated in the deck that is going to have the deck speak for them. Forget about running down the money, run down the clarity first. It takes a lot of mental energy to apply for a grant, and it's a lot of brokenness when you don't get through. Especially when you even say, then is what's special about them? So that's what I would say first, right? Obsess yourself with our 5 metrics: confidence, competence, clarity, information, inspiration. But with the grants, clarity is key.
All right, thank you. And that's very, very important. There are quite a number of different types of grants that nonprofits as well as social enterprises can access. Some of them you submit a proposal, an application form that is created by the funder, but some of them you will have to do the pitch deck that Mark spoke about. Some of them even require you to do a video. So are you prepared to do that? And as he mentioned, clarity is very important in accessing the grant. Okay, so we're going to move back to Fardeen. And there are many young persons, maybe some of you are in the room, some of you are online, who have ideas for projects, great projects. Some persons are already working in their community and creating impact, but their organizations are not yet registered. Can they access the grant that GEF offers to continue the work that they're doing in the community, or is it a case that they must be registered to access your grant?
Thank you. Great question. That's $1 million question, right? All right. Before I answer that, let me just first state that one of the reasons why GEF Small Grants, that's one of our criteria for eligibility, is that you must be a registered entity, is that there has to be accountability for the vast amount of money that we are giving to your organization for community development, right? And it's very difficult to hold that one individual accountable. If you run off with the money, how do we get it back? Who do we go to, right? But yes, there is an opportunity to get support from us even if you're not registered. How is that done? This is not something that we advertise, by the way. So if you are a group, you have a passion for developing your community, there is an environmental concern, an issue. Your community might be one that is prone to, land slippages, right? You may have a community center and you may need to start thinking about how you introduce renewable energy as your way of reducing your carbon footprint, or reducing how much you pay for electricity bills so that you can put back some of that money into community development. So you have that passion. Don't be deterred by the fact that you're not registered. Submit that plan to us. Submit that concept, submit that proposal. When we look at it and we see the value in it, we're going to have a conversation with you. We're going to find out, why is it that you're not registered as an entity? It could be that because you're youth-led, you're constrained financially. It could be that because of the space that you're in, you may not meet the membership requirement to get a registration with the Department of Cooperative, for example. So when we look at that and we have that conversation, we can say, okay, submit a capacity development grant to us, request to us. That the maximum for that is about $5,000 US. And what that will help you to do is to pay to get your registration done, cover the cost for registration, maybe have meetings with various government or private sector agencies to help to strengthen your institutional capacities. Now, once that is implemented successfully over a 6-month or a 12-month period, then you're now ready to matriculate or graduate to the stage where you can now access the $50,000 US.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. So for all the persons who your organization has not yet been registered, look, here is a grant for you. By the way, I forgot to mention that we have giveaways, so I hope that you're listening and maybe taking notes so that you can win some of the prizes that we will have for you at the end.
Can I add something, Anisha?
Yes, sure.
I forgot. Another option too is that we could ask you to maybe partner with an organization in your community that is registered. They will resubmit the application on your behalf, quote unquote, on your behalf. And this is where now a partnership is formed to ensure that that community development project gets implemented.
Okay, so that's awesome. So thank you for adding that. I have a follow-up for you though. So many times when you're applying for grants, the funder will say that the organization must contribute to the grant. And this contribution can be in kind, or some funders may say it also has to be cash value. So do you seek that at GEF? Is that required?
Yes, a one-to-one co-funding or matching grant is required, and that comes in the form of cash and or in kind. No matter how poor you think your community is very rich. It has a lot of resources. No matter how small you think your organization is, it has a lot of rich resources that you can apply to this project. For example, the people who will form your project management team, their time comes at a cost. It can be valued. So if in the real world you were to charge for implementing a project, you say, my time to implement this would be about 200,000 per month. Multiply that by 24. That is in-kind contribution. If you are using a community center, for example, to host your workshops, have your meetings, using the space, if the space was donated or given at a discounted cost, that is in-kind contribution. If you are implementing an agricultural project, so you're doing beekeeping, you're putting up a greenhouse, and so on and so forth, the value of that space, that land, it comes at a cost, right? It comes at a value, and you apply that to your project. And you multiply that over 12 or 24 months. You realize that you supersede that one-to-one co-funding that the donor is requiring.
Yes. Thank you. And I can definitely agree with that. We've had that experience in Young Women. In fact, that's how we grew the organization and built it, in terms of using in-kind contribution from the team members, the project team. I've seen some of our partners in the room. We use the Manchester Youth Innovation Center, where we started out, as our facility. So it definitely works. If you do not have the cash, you can partner with persons and value your in-kind contributions to add up to the funding. So
if I could just add, and sometimes we do not value this, which is very important, your collaboration with the government agencies, the RADA, the Social Development Commission, the time that they take to advise you, give you technical support, to come and host those workshops for you, it comes at a value, and you apply that to your budget.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Tanisha, we're back with you, and we want to know, what are 3 of the top mistakes made by young people when seeking grants? So there are many young persons who we've had experience to. You submit the application, and then we get a no. We don't get the funding. Can you tell us, what are 3 mistakes that you see often by young people when submitting grants?
Okay, and we have to be real here, because we're having real conversations.
Yes.
We don't want everything to look all peachy and rosy, because the fact of the matter is that, one, at times young people seeking grant funding, at times they don't really assess even their own personal finances, basically. What I will also want to encourage young people is that you look at your personal finances, just to ensure that, do you have sufficient funds? Look at your expenses, look at your income, because at the end of the day, you don't want to start a business and not having sufficient funds in place, where it now leads you to seek funding otherwise, which now puts the business in debt and yourself in debt. So it's important for you to look at your own finances, their income, your expenses, and plan accordingly in terms of how money will be coming in for you to support yourselves. So that is one of the mistakes that they make. Number 2, not planning in terms of seeking funding too early for the business. Let me put it that way. Seeking funding without having a financial plan, for clarity. What I mean by that, the first thought that comes to young people's mind at times is to seek funding, yes. But seeking that funding, there's no clear part, no clear plan in place in terms of, how am I going to use this fund to ensure that the grant does maximize and benefit my business for the long term. So again, you have to look at the expenses, look at your cash flow, look at all your revenues and all of these things, and you plan accordingly to ensure that there's a clear plan in place, and you see where accessing the grant will benefit your business. Number 3, having unrealistic financial projections. There is absolutely nothing wrong, guys, with you saying that you want to make the money. And I always tell my entrepreneurs when I do trainings, there's nothing wrong with you wanting to make money. But there's a different side of the coin when you say you want to make millions. At the end of the day, you do not have the infrastructure. You have nothing in place where that is concerned. So I will say to you, temper your expectations. Be realistic in terms of looking at your revenues, looking at your expenses, also considering the market that you are in and your competition. The environment is very dynamic. So it means you have to approach your business with a very open mind, being very strategic about it, being very forward thinking about these things. So therefore, in the event when you have an issue, you can pivot and you will now know how you need to go forward. So these are some of the things, 3 things I want to highlight in terms of young people, some of the mistakes that they make as it relates to approaching their journey of seeking grants.
Okay, wow, thank you so much for that. How many persons knew or had any idea about these kind of mistakes that are made by young persons? How many of you have made these mistakes when applying for grants before? So thank you so much for sharing. We're going to Mark, and you focus a lot on the pitch deck. Now, how widely is the pitch deck used in order to seek funding, whether for businesses, social enterprises, or even nonprofits? And how can you help? Can young persons here come to you to get help with their pitch deck?
All right, so first question will be answered last, right? So I like answering the yes questions first. So at the back where the academic journeys booth is, there are some pretty colored pages like this on the booth. If you scan the code, it takes you to my website, and the first hyperlink on it says you can access a free 30-minute session with me. Now I've set up 4 30-minute sessions starting this Saturday for the next 6 Saturdays, because I believe in what the UN is doing, right? So those are free, okay? If you want my services beyond that, then that's a different conversation. So that's the first thing. So you go to askmarkscott.com, and the first hyperlink on it, you click on it and you get on my calendar. To go to the question about the funding. Yes, I can help, and I want to help now with one simple answer, if you'll allow me. I don't want anyone in the room to be left behind, so please allow me a second. The word capacity, this is only for who doesn't know, so that they can stay abreast with the conversation. The word capacity is the technical word that funders use to represent your ability. So if you tell them that you're going to come and cater for this room, and they realize you don't have some basic equipment, your capacity comes into question, all right? It also speaks to human resource. You say, okay, you're going to roll out and do all of this nice decor in this room. They're going to ask you, do you have the technical competence on your team to do that, right? So when you're dreaming, the dream is free, but the work costs, right? And the last part I want to make is in terms of marketing. Must say this to you guys. Marketing, and a very important mentor to me said it to me, and I haven't forgotten it, and I teach even my 4-year-olds this. Marketing is the promised delivery of goods and services that do not return to people who do. I'm going to say it one more time and conclude. Marketing is the promised delivery of goods and services that do not return to people who do. If you attempt to access a grant funding and you don't get it, are you going to stop being business? If you stop, it's likely because you're offering something that will be returned to people who won't return, unless they're returning to return your goods. Yeah? Google did R&D for 10 years. I could have taken my company much bigger than it is by now. But it's because of partnerships with UN and a person like Gillian where we take our time and grow. So that's what I want to share on that question.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. So Mark has left us with some solid points. And remember, he has offered to give you how many? 4 sessions. So I hope you're on his website, which is www.askmarkscott.com. askmarkscott.com, right? So I'm sure it's going to be the top 4 or the first 4 persons. Now, we've heard about the mistakes that young people make, but here we have the funders with us, and we want to know what are the top things, starting with you, Fardeen, that you look for or that young people should bear in mind when they're submitting grants to you. And do you have a grant that is currently open at the GF for youth?
Well, our last call just closed, but we have coming soon. We usually issue calls at least twice per year, right? So there are always opportunities. And the question is, what do we look for when you would start submitting proposals?
Yes, and what should they bear in mind?
The first thing you need to bear in mind is your cause fully aligned to the donor that you're applying to, right? So not because you see a call, you say, oh, money, let me send in a proposal. No, it must be aligned to the donor's focal area. So for JFSGP, for example, we focus on environmental issues. So climate change, biodiversity, chemicals and waste management, land degradation and sustainable forest management. So we support a lot of agricultural and environmental conservation activities. So if your cause is not addressing any of those issues, then we are not the best fit for you, right? And if you have to try to squeeze it and fit it and stretch it, you're only wasting your time and wasting our time, because it will show in the quality of the proposal that you submit. 2, if you recognize there is an alignment, right? Follow the instructions of the donor. So not because you submitted a proposal to company A, for example, and you see now a call from JFSGP, doesn't mean you need to send the same document, right? Follow the specific instructions. Stick to the word limit. We really no donor has time to go through a 40-page document. If we say summarize your issues and your measures in half a page, that's all we are looking for, right? And if you are challenged, if you're unable to comprehensively state your case in a very succinct way, get the help of others who are able to do that. Put it down on paper and have somebody, edit and summarize that for you, right? Because you may have a very good project, but because you're too wordy, and we find that a lot with many youth-led organizations, young people are wording it, take us around the world and back, and it's very difficult for us to really ascertain what it is you're trying to tell us. And finally, I will add, ensure that your objectives are clear. Your objectives tell us exactly what it is you want to achieve, and too often we see projects where we're skimming through the pages just to try to understand what it is you're saying. So if you have your objectives clearly defined, then it's going to be easy for us to determine if this is a winning or a good proposal, right? Oh, I did say last thing, but let me add, be truthful. Be as truthful as you can be, because when as donors, when we drill down into those proposals and we call you for clarity, everything must align. And we have had too many cases, including youth-led organizations, where information is presented to us that that were not fully accurate. So please bear that in mind.
Right. Thank you so much for that. And just to add to your last point of being truthful, so just as how us as youth organizations or youth-led organizations do our research on the funder to find the grants, the funders, they do their research on us too after we have submitted our applications to them. So just adding to the point of being truthful, what is your social media saying about your organization, about your project? So that's very important. So thank you so much for that. We're winding down, but Tanisha wanted to ask you, just maybe to add on to what Fardeen has said, is there anything that she did not mention that you look out for at the Jamaica Youth Business Trust for young persons?
what we look for. Critically, we need to ensure that there is a viable business idea. Oftentimes, young people get caught up with their own ideas. But the truth of the matter is that you have to look at your idea just to ensure that, ask yourself some question. Look at your value proposition, because that is what is going to set you apart from your competition. Do I have something enough, unique enough, that sets me apart from what is already out there in the market? You also have to look at your target audience, because that is whom you'll be marketing to. And it's important in this day and age when it comes on to marketing that you understand these set of persons, because this is where you will be crafting that solution to them. And you have to be able to speak their language and to get their attention in order for you to secure that sale. So you have to ensure that you zoom in on your target audience. You also need to look at your funding that you will need, because it is critical also in terms of your projections as it relates to your revenues, your expenses, all of these things that will require you in terms of running your business. And oftentimes I see where entrepreneurs, you ask them, how much money do you need to start your business? 500,000. Okay, let us drill down to see if this 500,000 is sufficient for you. And you realize that might run in near $1 million, because they have not thought about, okay, this is to get me started. But to keep my business running for the next 3 to 6 months, I need to set aside this amount of money. And that is where the crux of the matter comes in. And that is where now you did not fully plan out all the finances that you need. Also, which would have mentioned, research your donors and ensure, just to reinforce, that you ensure that there's an alignment. It doesn't make any sense that your environment, the donor is speaking, they support persons who are in environmental projects, but you are in retail. It does not make any sense. So you need to ensure you do your research. Everything will not be handed out to you, so you have to really do your research and to see where there is an alignment. And finally, you also need to ensure that you craft a very convincing but yet truthful business proposal, one that will speak to your mission and the impact that your business seeks to make, again highlighting and aligning it to the priorities of the grant funders, just to ensure you give yourselves the best possible chance to secure the funding. So these are some of the things that you have to be mindful of, and again, there are way much more that the young persons need to take into consideration.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Just one little addition to your question. Based on your experience in JYBT, can you tell us what are 2 of the top organizations that provides grant funding for youth organizations?
That's a setup question. And let me be very honest with you. It's almost as if you're asking me which bank is the best, in all honesty. And I could not answer that question, and I would not sit here and be that disingenuous to you. But just to say to you that there are many opportunities out there. But I think we would have stated since the morning that what is critical for us to look at is to ensure that there are alignment in terms of ensuring that there's priority. The priorities are aligned. So you have to do your research. You have to look at ensuring that what is it that I'm proposing to these grant funders? Does it make sense? Is there a clear opportunity? Because having an idea is one, but you have to make sure, did I validate this idea to say that yes, it now substantiates where there is a market for it. So when I craft my proposal, it gives me the best possible chance for me to secure this funding. So you have to ensure that you have done your homework, manage your expectations, because it is very, very important, because you will hear a lot of no's out there. You also need to be mindful that you may be restricted in terms of your geographical location, because while you mentioned that you were able to access some international grant funding, or probably regional, not everyone, in all honesty, will be able to tap into those funds, so to speak. So again, you have to research. Yes, you may have opportunities out there, but it may not be a situation where you meet that eligibility criteria. And again, too, one of the things that opens you up to a lot of these grants is to ensure that your business is actually formalized. What do I mean? It means that you register with the Companies Office of Jamaica. That allows you now to, at the end of the day, give you the first step in terms of tapping into some of these funding opportunities for you. So that would be my best answer where that is concerned. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Tanisha. So I'm going to help her out a little bit. So before, you were told that we actually have a grant database, an ebook that you can download and it has the top 100 grants for non-profit organizations and social enterprises globally. So whether you're in Jamaica, and as Tanisha mentioned, it has the countries that are eligible for the grant, the amount of the grant, and the deadline. And so during your lunchtime or after this session, you can go by the booth at Young Women and Men of Purpose. We have the QR code. Once you scan it, you will get access to this database or to this downloadable PDF that has 100 grants that you can actually access. So I think that's helping.
Thank you so much. Yes, it does.
All right. Okay, so we come to you, Mark, and this, I think, is the final question for you, too. Now, have you ever had any success stories, any young person that you have helped with their pitch deck? Can you tell us briefly about that? And also, we want you to give us, an elevator pitch in terms of give us an elevator pitch in the terms of a crash course as to what persons should look for in a pitch deck. Do you have?
Yeah. What is there? All right. I was just checking if we had the visual that I could just quickly. Yeah, it was sent.
Okay, so can you just bring up Mark's visual, please, while he goes through?
All right, so the person that I want to mention specifically in terms of who has actually accessed grants is someone that's way better than a student of mine, to be honest, right? He's a colleague of mine from the Branson Center. Now, in the Branson Center, we have a group that we call Cohort 7C7, and let me tell you, you need entrepreneurs who you can ride with here as you go through this journey. People who will hear your ideas and not be intimidated by it. And you have to choose your coaches carefully, because some coaches will poach. Just remember I said that. Now, Marcus Sewell is the name of the person, right? And Marcus has won the JN competition in 2019, the JN Small Business Kickstarter competition. He also has won the Digital Business Mentorship Program and the next one. So he's won a couple things. But anyways, let me just tell you what is most important to you. The business model pitch, the business model canvas is the nucleus of the pitch deck, okay? When you asked about an elevator pitch, when I meet a parent, I say, listen, I teach children to become the top 1%ers. It sounds outlandish, but then they need to ask me for the receipts, and I can provide the receipts. And the receipts show an 11-year-old beating 3,000 kids across the world in coding. Why is that important? Because as a teen, I was a programmer. Now, that was my pitch to you. And based on the nods I'm seeing, it would suggest that if I chose to go on, maybe you'd want to hear some more. But that never came overnight. You have to work on your story, talk to people, and say, oh, the first 3 seconds, them not interested in what I say. Now, the pitch deck, coming back to the pitch deck, the nucleus of the pitch deck, as I said before, is a business model canvas. The left side of the business model canvas speaks to all of the elements that you need to create the value proposition. Perfect. So I have 30 seconds to do this now. So over here, what I've done is I've used icons on top of a business model canvas. The first question was how universal it is. This is actually what is taught in business schools across the world now. This is the mini version of your business plan. Your business plan is like the airport. Your business model canvas is like, your pitch deck is like the aircraft, right? And your business model canvas itself is like the engine. That's how I would describe it to you, right? So you have to have key partnerships, handshakes. You have to have key activities, checklists. You have to have key resources. When you're starting out, you might be a one-entrepreneur until you become a, team and all of that. And then sometime your team leave you and you go back to being a one-entrepreneur until, right? So these three things over here, plus the cost structure, these are the things that go together first to build your value. I remember what I said about marketing. Marketing is the promised delivery of goods and services that do not return to people who You said that, all right. On this side now, you have customer relationship, customer segments, and you have revenue streams. Revenue streams are where you're getting your money from. Customer relationships mean who want to smile with you, right? And channels of distribution here just means how are you going to get your information across? Am I fast? I hope I'm not going too fast, right? By the way, guys, how are you? Am I going too fast?
No, you're good.
Okay, good. All right. So long and short, what I'm trying to say to you is that this is a reflection of, or a combination of what you have available to you. And as Mr. Leachin taught me personally, and I'm going to say it, right? I was trying to get a budget from him for something at CVM, and he took me one side and said, Mark, sometimes you have to substitute deep-pocketedness with creativity. And if you follow his Twitter channel now, you see him putting more of those knowledge out. I'm saying that because you have to look first and ask yourself, do I have a friend? We heard from Scotch Boys earlier, and he said he started with his friend, right? So you have to start with people you can trust. You have to put your hat where you, well, my hairline is receding, so, but you have to put your hat where you can reach it. You understand what I mean? And this is it in a nutshell. Now, to clarify, I have 6 Saturdays that I am supporting 4 sessions per Saturday with 10 persons per session. If you want to know more, you know where to find me. I am Mark Scott. AskMarkScott.com. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for breaking down the business model canvas in 30 seconds, under a minute for us. And I'm sure if you want to learn more about, how you can create your own pitch for your business or your social enterprise or your nonprofit organization, just go to Ask Mark Scott and he'll be more than happy to help you. So we're winding down. I hope that this panel discussion was useful. Have you learned anything? All right, so we're going to test that in a minute. Understand? But before we go to some questions and try to give away a few prizes for persons who, were listening, I just want to say thank you to each of our panelists who are here for sharing their information or information about the grants that you offer and how we can all improve our applications, whether for a grant for a nonprofit or a grant for a business for the persons. So in 30 seconds, what would be your encouragement to the persons in the room to access the grant that you offer from your organization? 30 seconds.
Encouragement to access?
Yes.
Access. Put the ideas that you have, just put it on paper, download our application form, call us, run your ideas by us, run your solutions by us, and then we'll be able to guide you as you develop the document. Jeff SGP, we are into nurturing and coaching, and so this is one of the things that we pride ourselves in, because we don't just give grants to organizations. We also transform the way you think, the way you implement, because you're not just representing yourselves, you're representing your community, you're representing Jamaica, you're representing the region. So call us and let us have a conversation.
Thank you, Fardeen.
For me, 3 things. 1, manage your expectations. 2, look at your mindset. And 3, start researching, gathering your information. And that will when you put it together, give you the best opportunity in terms of securing your grants. Thank you.
And Mark, your 30 seconds.
All right, my 30 seconds quickly. I believe in knowledge. That's what has lifted my family to many, many heights, right? So the first thing I'd say to you is you need to read what is cutting edge in business. You're not going to Harvard Business School, but that don't mean that you can't download the book list and read. So one book I'm going to encourage everybody to read or challenge you to read as a business book is Blue Ocean Strategy. If you're reading that, you realize that all in your friend teeth your idea 1,000,000 times and still never teach the 1,000,001th pivot, right? Blue Ocean Strategy, number 1. Number 2, Prahalad teaches the fortune at the bottom of the pyramid. Write that. Why is that important? An 8-ounce bottle of shampoo selling in America goes over to India, can't sell. They chop it down in sachets. It makes more money per volume because it's more accessible at a price point for the market. And the last thing that I wanted to add is at the end of the day, do your pitch decks. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can we give a hand to the panelists? So you've heard it from them as the funders, and I've shared with you earlier that my organization, Young Women and Men of Purpose, we have access grants not only in Jamaica, but across the world, over $300,000 for the last 14 years to do projects that create impact in Jamaica. So it means that if we can do it, you can do it too. And we're sharing with you our grants database, which has 100 grants that you can access not only locally, but globally. So please head over to the booth during your lunchtime to download the booklet. And for those online, you can access it in our booth on the itinerary platform. You will see grants database, and all you need to do is to click, download, and you'll get access to it. Do we have time for the questions? Or two? Okay, so we are going to be doing some giveaways. We're going to be doing some giveaways, and I have questions for you. The first question is, Fardane from GEF shared the total amount or an estimate of the amount of grant funding that they have given to organizations in Jamaica. How much was it? I saw your hand first. $60 million US. Can you give her a hand so you get a nice plastic bottle? Now, there were three things so we'll have it for you, right? There were three things that were mentioned earlier in terms of what you should bear in mind when you're applying for grants for your organization. What are the three things? I saw your hand.
Okay, no, please have a financial plan.
Financial plan?
Your goals need to align with that of the donor. Realistic financial goals. Own financial resources and finances.
Yeah,
and finances. Okay, do we agree?
Yeah.
All right, so give her a clap. So you will get a laptop bag, and you can redeem your prizes by the UNDP booth. All right? Okay. All right.
What do you need to give them?
Okay. And lastly, we can take two questions from the audience, from the panelists. So were there any burning questions? All right.
Yeah.
One. So you can come forward or just stand and use the mic. Who is that?
So sorry.
They're hungry, they want to go.
Okay. Jeff.
Hi, thank you. My name is Ananda Squire. I'm a university student. I'm studying political science and international relations at UWI. You mentioned Blue Ocean Strategies, Mr. Scott. I haven't read the book myself, but I have a friend who's super into being an entrepreneur, and he recommended the book to me. And based on his rundown, it sounds like a very profound piece of text, and can't wait to start it. But I wanted to ask, what has been your major takeaway from that book, and that you'd like to share with persons that were here?
All right. Scarcity is a concept. Blue Ocean Strategy teaches you that you don't need to join the scarcity line. The blue ocean concept comes from the idea of red ocean and blue ocean. In order for me to advance in this room and take control of this room, somebody else has to retreat, right? Blue ocean says, listen, instead of all of us go and look for, give me one kind of fish we eat. Which fish you eat? Snapper. Instead of all 10 of us being fishermen and 9 of us going to fish snapper, when the 9 gone out to their boats look for snapper, I am here. What's your name again?
Ananda.
Ananda. So I called up Ananda and said, Ananda, can I borrow your yacht? And he said, yes. Say yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then I say, can I borrow 10 barrels of oil? Say yes.
Yes.
Yes? We have to say yes.
Yes.
Okay. And can I borrow some very heavy fishing lines? Say yes.
Sure.
Okay. Now what happened is that I'm going to go out to sea a little further and I'm going to take a little longer. But when I come back with some king crab and some this and that, and I come to a fancy place like this, nobody can compete with me on price. So I'm not entering a race to the bottom for who can sell cheapest. I don't play that game. If I can't get my price on anything I'm doing, I just sponsor. It's very simple.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
They always have this
Right.
mindset.
That's it. All right, well, once again, thank you, everyone, and thank you to our panel.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for that very excellently moderated panel. Thank you so much, Lenicia Roden, President of the Young Women and Men of Purpose. And of course, you can go ahead and check out their booth once you get the opportunity. Go ahead and scan that barcode so you can find out more about those grant opportunities online. And of course, our expert panel that guided us through the things you need to know to ensure that you can secure that grant, not just here in Jamaica, but across the world.